everyone, and welcome back to Jacqify's World. Today, I am with Deepa Srikanta. She's the Director of Corporate Relations at Michigan State University, and I will give her this opportunity to introduce herself.
Thank you for having me. My name is, as you said, Deepa Srikanta. My PhD was in genomics, primate comparative genomics, and I then did a postdoc in molecular microbiology. So a lot of high throughput biology. And at that point, I decided to pivot. And I thought about what I really enjoyed about the work that I was doing, and this position came available at my original institution. And so I became a director of their corporate and foundation relations and now corporate relations for Michigan State University. I over answered your question, I know.
No, you're perfect because that pays us to the next question, which is about your career journey. How did it start? Which schools did you start in? And the whole journey from undergrad, possibly all the way to where you are right
Sure.
now.
Sure. So I've always done biology. That has always been kind of a constant for me. Exactly. Yeah. In As an undergrad, so I went to Mizzou for the University of Missouri at Columbia for my undergraduate degree, and there's a large kind of crop and ag focus, and so I did some research in an Arabidopsis lab, so working on plants, and then I actually did quantitative trait loci work over the summer with the USDA, also with faculty members, kind of around corn. With faculty members at Mizzou, and I loved the work. I thought it was really exciting and interesting. But one of the kind of aspects or threads of interest for me that have run through a lot of my work is that I wanted to understand how kind of the host pathogen health interface, kind of all of that played together. And with that, I graduated and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with life, because you're 22 and you're thinking, where do I go? What do I do? And I was accepted into a master's program in a little around Washington, D.C. And I decided to go there. And unfortunately, the lab work was there, but a lot of it was coursework. And so I had to find a job as well. And so I applied for and received a fellowship to work at the National Cancer Institute as a post-baccalaureate fellow. And so that's kind of really where I got excited about kind of health related research, and the host pathogen work just really kind of took off. Um, from there, I chose to go to graduate school at Louisiana State University, where I did primate comparative genomics. And I had a great time in graduate school. It was an awesome place to be and a great learning experience, because the whole experience in graduate school kind of opens your eyes to what could be out there and what you can do with the degree.
Yeah.
Because there were so many, my roommate during graduate school, she was actually in science education. And so, like, a little bit different. She had to understand what we were doing in the lab, but she also had to be able to translate it. And because of work as a TA, I had to learn how as well. So we had some great conversations. Um, Post that, I decided to go the postdoc route because I wanted to be really sure of what I wanted to do. And as I was kind of going through my postdoc, I started applying for jobs. And I found that when I was looking at jobs I was attracted to, it wasn't just straight faculty positions where I was going to be in the research lab 100% of the time. Teaching components, science education or science communication aspects as well. And my postdoc advisor was amazing that way. She helped me and encouraged me to find those opportunities to go to conferences, to talk to people, to really understand what the various avenues, if you will, were. And during that process, this opportunity came up. So I was at Washington University School of Medicine at the time, and this opportunity came up to support the medical school. And as I read through the application, I kept thinking, oh, I do that, but right now, just for the work that I do myself.
Yeah.
And it took me a while, and I thought about it, and I kind of evaluated, okay, what are the parts about the career that I love? Do I love being in the lab all hours of the day, 7 days a week, or do I love the writing process? and or which aspects of things do I really enjoy doing. And and when it came down to it, I was offered the position, and I realized that being a corporate and foundation relations officer gave me the opportunity to do the writing, to create the presentations, to talk about the science without having to be in the lab and trying to, that aspect of it was probably, yeah, not as much my favorite, which is not to say I don't miss it sometimes now.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, at that point, I was recruited to Michigan State University, and I was really excited about it because of the fact that my role is biomedical sciences, but kind of what I referred to earlier about, working in a cornfield and trying to understand the health aspects of things. This was an opportunity to tie it all together.
Yeah.
So my job now, it's great because when I talk about health and, kind of the interface of health and agriculture, and frankly, it's the supply chain. How do we get that food to the table, and what does that do? And education on the back end. How do we ensure everyone understands that our ingredients are safe? And and I get to help our faculty and our programs essentially figure out funding and support so they can
Yeah.
continue their amazing work.
Wow, that is really interesting. And I can relate to so many of those of those steps, because I also started in working with Arabidopsis. I was in a plant biochemistry lab, so I've worked with Arabidopsis for like 3 years of my undergrad. And when I was applying to grad school, when you talked about pathogen and crop pest and crop
Mhm.
interactions, and I just remembered my personal statements and all the things that I was writing about that in one of the schools, because I applied to a plant-based, I think it was plant biochemistry and molecular biology program, and I remember writing something about that because I was thinking about doing something with aphids and the tea plantations, and yeah,
Mhm.
so it's really nice to know that somebody has gone through this, such a similar
Yeah.
such a similar career path, because sometimes I feel i I have so many interests, but at the same time I also want to narrow down my focus. So maybe you could enlighten us on what your current position entails. What is your scientific focus area? So,
Ah,
are you in biomedical side of things? Are you working with crops, for example? And even in that, are you looking at nutrition, or are you doing something completely different from that? I don't know, drug development.
and the answer is yes.
Yes.
It's great, and that's what I love about this position. So the goal of my job with corporate relations is, so my particular role is I sit in fundraising, and so
Okay.
the idea is how to find those opportunities for support with corporate partners and to engage partners in conversation with the hopes of getting them to come to camp. Well, back when we could meet in person, right?
Mm.
Come to campus to meet the faculty or to meet program directors to understand how their support would help make an impact on that program or the research. And so I do all of the things you were saying, and it really depends on the day. It's some days I might be focused on, I talked about ingredient safety and what does that look like and why does that matter for people.
Hmm.
And then another day I'll be talking about the supply chain of pharmaceuticals, the Drug Security Supply Chain Act. This is something important that we talk about here, and we have faculty members doing amazing work this way. Other days, I spend a lot of time with places like our Institute for Quantitative Health Sciences and Engineering, where we're kind of trying to look at the interface of kind of the biological and the engineering aspects. So, wearables comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
Or different ways we can kind of do that work. And how can we get people excited about what we're doing in
Hmm.
the hopes of getting the support, even if it's also just feedback, right?
Hmm.
To ensure that we're going down the right paths. And so I that's what I do. It's a lot of fun. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to because of the way my role is, I sit in a central office, and so that means I support all 17 degree granting colleges at the university.
Ah, okay.
And so that means from my perspective, I'm trying to learn about what the corporate funders and corporate partners could be interested in.
Mm.
And at the same time, what our faculty are doing and where are they passionate and where are there these opportunities where we can find a really good match.
I don't know if I asked this, but what is the entry level for your for your current position? Like, how do you grow your way up to a director?
It depends on your organization. So
Okay.
in some cases, you can come in as an assistant director and of corporate or foundation or corporate and foundation relations. And the idea there is that you start working with organizations and companies and building your portfolio and your
Mm.
relationships. And then you'd move to associate director and essentially it would grow, right, in
Yeah.
terms of what you're doing and who you're talking to, and then director, and then senior director, and depending on where you are, they also have like an executive director level over the whole program. So while I'm focused on the biomedical sciences, I have a counterpart, and his focus is on planes, trains, and automobiles. He calls it the Steve Martin portfolio. Um, and I have another colleague, and she is focused on kind of the insurance industry and a little bit of banking and finance. And so yeah, you also get specialized.
So, what would you term as a successful day? And, since I feel like every day is a bit different. Would you term as a successful day or quarter or week for you?
So success is defined, it depends.
Mm.
So there are some days, just this week, where I spent a lot of time working on a slide deck, a presentation that I am working on and iterating with a company on. And that is so important. So it's spending all that time kind of getting those slides, getting the information in place, putting all of that together and building that, that information deck. And then there are other days where I'm talking to our internal partners. Just today, I was talking to a program on campus that does some amazing work with the migrant groups. And so basically, what's happening is we're trying to understand how can we help them find support so that they can continue doing their amazing work.
Mm.
And other days I'm talking to our external partners and I'm trying to understand what are they looking for and are we kind of meeting each other's needs? Is this something that's working so that these can be truly partnerships or collaborations?
I'm just curious. Being in such a position where you have access to, or the different colleges, Uh, do you have any opportunities for training like undergrads who would want to go into such a career path? Are there like internships or undergrad research opportunities that you provide, or your office or the colleges provide?
Right. So I sit in a central office, as I said, under what's called university advancement.
Mhm.
And so there is an associate's program. And the idea there is that students who are interested, or kind of after they've gotten their undergraduate degrees or whatever degree, they can go into that program to learn more about how they can kind of be a part of the fundraising arm of the university
Mhm.
within our office in particular. So there's a lot of research that happens in our office, and we have a dedicated prospect researcher. And so she has undergraduate and graduate students working for her as well, specifically so that they can find the information and that we can utilize it. And so they're doing a lot of analysis. And then in the part of we're kind of an external facing part of the office,
Mhm.
and so that means we're meeting with outside stakeholders of the university. And so with that, we also have kind of a training program, if you will, where we can get some people, students, and we're looking at undergraduate and graduate students who can come in and they can learn kind of what we do.
Yeah.
So, and we help them along the way because it's a nobody gets a degree in fundraising,
Yeah.
right? So it's how do people
Yeah.
come into this field? And I mean, I've had colleagues who have come here. One is a former lawyer who
Yeah.
decided that this was something she was passionate about. She was mission driven and this made sense for her.
Mhm.
I've got colleagues who came from industry who said, I had a sales job, and I realized that this, once again, it's that mission driven work. The same reason we go to universities, right? And we
Yeah.
spend a lot of time in the system, especially as PhD students.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I asked that question. I know it wasn't part of the questions I was supposed to ask, but I asked that question because I was an undergrad research ambassador on campus, and I,
Mhm.
some one of the main questions I would get from office hours, it would be like, where can I get these opportunities? And sometimes people don't really know where to go, and as much as we try, as the ambassadors, sometimes it's really hard. We know that professors do have it, but up on an upper level, so it's good to know that there are such opportunities as well from that level of management. What are some of the skills that you gained from grad school that really help you in your day-to-day work? And are they more of the technical skills? Are they more of the transferable skills?
So, in terms of technical skills, if we're talking about actual bench work, am I pipetting and doing southern blots or anything anymore? No.
I get.
I have the opportunity to, just because I have some, relationships with faculty members where they understand that sometimes I'm like, I feel like I want to do this again. And so they'll let me come into the lab
Yeah.
just for, a little bit of work or whatever, so that I can kind of get that out of my system for the moment, if you will. But a lot of them are transferable skills. I mean, research, especially so within advancement, corporate and foundation relations, those two particular fields,
Mhm.
that's all about understanding the research, understanding what is unfortunately a jargon filled field, right, in and of itself, and being able to translate that. And it's translating for an educated layperson. So someone who really wants to understand what it is, but maybe does not have that depth of background.
Mhm.
And so the research is huge in terms of being able to find the information, parse the information, figure out what you need to do with it. Uh, Writing and communicating that work is so important. I spend, depending on the day and the week, right? I spend a good bit of time working on proposals and grant applications that are going to be submitted, and ensuring that we are truly kind of answering the questions that are being asked, but also putting the best foot forward for some of those possibilities. And that's kind of iterating with the faculty members. So you're never far away from that work, if that makes sense. And then funding, right? I mean, think about it with graduate school, even you're applying for grants, you're
Yeah.
applying for fellowships, you're always looking.
Yeah.
The same thing, except now I'm not looking for funding for myself.
Mhm.
I'm looking for funding for other people. And so it's putting all of that together. So yeah, essentially everything except the actual bench work now I do put into practice.
Is there any outside training that you got to gain some of these transferable skills? That I know some people end up doing like a communications, like associate degree, or coaching or mentorship from an outside source throughout grad school and even beyond to help them get to that position that they want to achieve. Did you go through any of this additional training?
I didn't go through any additional training. I will say now, though, now that I've been in the field for about 5 years or so, there are organizations like NACRO, which is the Network of Academic Corporate Relations Officers. Rolls
Mhm.
off the tongue. But places like NACRO, where they do things like boot camps
Mhm.
that help you understand, how do you talk to corporate partners, how do you understand what they need, and so how do you write that proposal that will help you kind of be more successful.
Mhm.
And so those are things that were not kind of available or that I knew existed when I was applying for these positions. But this is where when I switched over to the position, I was at Washington University School of Medicine, and my lead, the senior director for corporate and foundation relations there, was a PhD who decided to switch over. And she was the one who made it a point to bring more PhDs on board to support the biomedical sciences. She thought these were, her idea or her thinking was that we all had the ability to translate. And that was the most important piece. And the rest, because of the fact that as PhDs, we're kind of jack of all trades might not be the best for, but you know what I'm saying? We can do
Yeah,
a lot of things.
yeah.
And so it's just, yeah, we're figuring out how to put it together.
I wanted to take you back to those days while you were doing your PhD. How was your experience? Like, how was it from, going in day one to the day you left? How was it for you?
Well, I mean, I loved graduate school. I had a good time in graduate school.
Yeah.
And for me, it was eye-opening because I'd gotten an undergraduate degree in biology, and then I had gone on to the NIH to do some work, and they were very different. And it felt like every time I did something new, I was learning. It felt like my eyes were opening wider and wider. Like there was such amazing stuff out there. And I think for me, it was always about the challenge and, reading that next paper and understanding what was so important, what was so cool about it. And could I apply any of that to the work that I'm doing?
Mhm.
And so, in terms of like, if you will, career trajectory, I mean, in graduate school, I thought I'm going to go into industry. No, I'm going to be a faculty member. And I kept going back and forth. And frankly, at that point, and that was, I graduated in 2009. At that point, I didn't know there were so many other options
Mhm.
out there. And I was looking at what I could see around me, and I saw faculty members and occasionally, staff members who were like staff lecturers and whatnot, or I saw folks going into industry. And so, yeah, finding some of these career paths they were not as available then, and I really
Mhm.
wish they were, because I maybe it would have changed how I did the work at that point.
Yeah, and that is one thing that I've noticed that they're trying to enlighten some of us. Some of us who are coming in, and the narrative is quite different when you're talking to a fifth year. They're like, "Oh, I didn't, we didn't get these classes when we were coming in about alternative career paths or non-academic research." Career opportunities that are out there. And I mean, the first week of orientation, that was, they tried to, oh yeah, you don't have I know most of you are here for to become a professor or some type of academic in some type of level in academia, but there are other opportunities as well. And I was, as I was going through those courses, I was thinking of science communication and journalism, which is something that we kind of know about it, but it's not it's not quite mainstream yet. And I would love to put in my contribution, especially in video journalism, so hence the YouTube channel. I'm quite curious about your day. How is your day from morning to evening? How do you schedule out everything with all the different aspects of your job?
So I place a lot of holds on my calendar right now. And the reasoning being that if those holds aren't there, we have a lot of meetings now, especially given that the world
Mm,
is virtual.
yeah.
And because everything is virtual, meetings are happening back to back to back, because it's easier to get a hold of people in a lot of ways, because nobody is having to travel from one location to another. But I guess it's trying to find those days and striking that balance. Otherwise, I'm looking at my Monday of this past week, and I had 4 meetings on Monday. And that was a short day because on Tuesday I had about 7 meetings. And it's balancing those days with the days when you can sit down and actually get the meat of the work done, because it's great to have the meetings, but then there's the follow up after the meetings. How do you ensure, if you are creating some kind of proposal or plan, you need to be able to put it together? It needs to look nice, it has to have good presentation value. And then you also need to be able to defend it. Sounds wrong, but sometimes you are, right? And it's not a defense in the terms of like, your PhD defense or anything like that, but it's a, do you know the programs well enough to be able to talk about them?
Mm.
So yeah, so it really depends on the day. And today I am doing one of the things that I am not as good at, and that is we do something called contact reporting.
Yeah.
And the idea there is when we talk to those external partners, we put everything into this large database that our colleagues can all reference too. So let's say they're going to go talk to someone from the food and beverage industry or from the medical devices industry. They can look in this database and they can say, oh, Deepa went and talked to them a couple of weeks ago. I should talk to her because she might have more information
Mhm.
for me on this and things like that.
What are some of the negative aspects of your career and positive aspects? So some things that you wish you had known when you were, before you got into your current position.
What would have been good to learn more about before
Mhm.
I started the position would be that academic administration, which is technically what my role falls in, is so very different from the other side, right? Whether you're faculty or student or,
Yeah.
it's a very different thing. And I wish there had been a way to learn more about it too
Mm.
before kind of joining and realizing, oh, I have to navigate all of these kind of
Yeah.
the politics and the things you didn't know kind of existed. I think the negative and the positive might be the same for me
Okay.
in that it's the constant challenge and variety. It's amazing. It's so much fun and it's so exciting because you spend your day learning about new things and you're thinking about how these pieces fit together,
Mm.
right? And what you can do with them and how you can talk to people about them, both internally and externally. I know just in general, interdisciplinary opportunities that started to grow as a you can't be so ultra focused, right? Even in graduate school.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see that even from the funder side. They're saying, great, you're amazing in your space. Who are you talking to in space Y? Who might also do amazing work that enhances the work that you're doing.
Mm.
And so the challenge and the variety is so exciting. And at the same time, staying on top of that challenge and the variety, it's
Yeah.
impossible. It's a moving
Mhm.
target.
Yeah.
So good and bad. It's yeah, some days you're tired. You're like, I thought I knew where we were going here, but now everything just changed. And it's good and it's bad.
I like that because you just described my grad school experience, right? I'm trying to figure out like getting my dissertation project. So one minute you think you're going this way, and then next week it completely changes on you. Final question: what would you advise somebody, like me, a grad student who just started and trying to work my way into a non-academic research career path, or even anyone who wants to get into academic administration? What would you advise them in terms of, from training all the way into balancing and getting their skills that they need to get to that position?
I would say keep an open mind, which it sounds like you've got. You're headed in the right path, and ensure that you have the right kind of advisor and the right kind, and not even just one. Right, you're going to have a primary PI, but you also have the opportunity to kind of create a committee of your own, if you will, and those could be mentors for you. And the goal would be there to try to find folks who are not just in academia but who are in those areas that you are interested in so that you can have the conversations because building that network is so important. And you need folks who will help you support the exploration. And for me, I know that was extraordinarily helpful. I found out about all kinds of career options that I never knew existed. And that involved even writing my own travel grants, right? So that I could go to some of these. I don't remember if it was FASEB or whom, but I think it was FASEB, which is why I named them. But a travel grant to go to a science communication workshop.
Mm.
And the idea there was talking about what are the issues with science communication right now? Where are we kind of having wins and where are things kind of, where do we see the gaps? Where are we doing that kind of gap analysis? And I had a postdoc advisor who was very open to me being able to go out and do those things. So that was, yeah, that's my biggest advice.
And that is great advice that I'm definitely going to take on, because yeah, I completely understand with the diversifying the committee especially. So that is great advice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and actually we just went over like 4 minutes, so that's
Not bad, that's
that's
fine.
perfect. Yeah, I
So,
try to keep them short.
yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think 30 minutes makes a lot of sense, right? In terms
Oh
of
yeah.
also attention span during
Oh yeah.
COVID times when everything is virtual right now.
That is so true. Okay, I will probably let you go
Yes, yes,
and have lunch or late lunch probably. Uh,
yes. Already done with that. But
I
all
live
right.
I live on coffee, so this is like my
Talk
this is alrighty. I will talk to
to you
you.
later.